I set up your first professional fight. It's your big break.
It's what you want, isn't it? You're such a tease.
Dad, I've got a life. Not anymore, you ain't. You're a boxer.
So you made this? All of this? Do you ever get lonely out here? Or keep the world at a distance? This whole town reeks of testosterone.
Eyes up, eyes up. Do you want this boxing thing?
I do. Dad, you're all I've got.
You can't go around being the victim your whole life. Nobody cares that you're gay.
You're my boy. Is that nothing to you now?
You can't just push everything away forever. You're worth more, mate.
We've got a little secret, you and me.
You think you want to be mates, but you're too scared.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you. I just real quick, I wanted to tell you that you were on this podcast once before back in September of 2016, as I'm sure you remember.
Isn't that extraordinary? And now it's Zoomland.
Yeah, it was for a really good film. I was proud to help to get the word out about Chronic.
Oh yeah, I love that film.
You were wonderful. And actually I ended up doing a Q&A with Michelle,
oh, yeah.
at the Museum of the Moving Image or something. This is going back now like 6 or 7 years, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just starting writing on the next one. We did one called Sundown together, which is another one of those very strange, things that I love to do. Yes. And especially with him. I think he's one of the great filmmakers. And then we're just starting. We're about to launch into the writing process for the next one, which is another huge subject. So
this is with Michelle Franco.
With Michelle, yeah.
So you're regular collaborators, obviously.
Oh, it'll be my third film with him, and then I produce with him as well.
Is that something? Do you have that relationship with any other filmmaker in particular?
No. I mean, apart from Quentin invited me back on Pulp Fiction, and then we did.
Were you in that? I said, were you in that?
Yeah, a little bit. And then we did, and then Hateful Eight, and then Once Upon a Time I was in for a second, but that got cut out. Oh no! But it was such a fun week. And so he's a collaborator for me if and when he needs me. But with Michelle, I think that will go on until I stop. I hope.
Well, I go back all the way with you and your career because
What's that one?
That's Mike, who's been on a couple of times. Michael Lee.
Meantime, yeah.
That was one of your. I just pulled.
That was my second job.
Yeah.
The second time in front of the camera. Yeah, it's strange.
So, would you count television in that? Would you say, or because
I don't really care either or. Yeah. And television actually was very different back then. I mean, my first job was a thing with Alan Clark for television that caused a storm in Britain. I was not expecting. And I mean, questions in Parliament and stuff like that, which is hilarious. My beginnings I count as Alan Clark in Made in Britain, Mike Leigh in Meantime, Stephen Frears in The Hit, and then that was how I was sort of shaped. I started thinking as an actor, really. Before that, community theatre, and very good community theatre, and then Quentin at his very beginnings with Reservoir Dogs, and how that shaped my time in America. So it's been a complete mess, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, anyway, a really wonderful time to start a career in film right when you did, all those filmmakers you're mentioning.
Yes.
And all the other work. I mean, but I don't want to get too distracted because I really could just do a whole thing on your work.
No worries.
But I don't want to leave out this emphasizing this film, Punch, in which you play the kind of sick and alcoholic, a broken down fellow named Stan, who's the father of the boxer, of a son who's both a boxer and also, let's say, figuring out his sexual identity over the early course of the film. And well, it's shot in New Zealand, so I guess my first question is about that is, like, how did you were sent the script? Is that what happened? And then one of my gang of reprobates, my agents in London, and they're the same agents I've had since the beginning. They said, I think you should take a look at this. And so I read it and I thought, this is terrific. And it wasn't really the character I understood very much echoes of my father, who was in the Second World War, seriously damaged by what he'd seen and done. I mean, he was deep in it. As a teenager, a 17-year-old, when he joined, came over from America with his family, who were battered and bruised for various reasons, and then escaped his family to go into the Second World War, and saw some very, very, very heavy stuff. He always said to me, homosexuals died in the camps, always remember that, Tim. He always talked about homosexuals dying in the concentration camps. He always said that homophobia was a political tool. And so when the script came my way, I recognized the illness that the father had, that he was bruised and battered and self-medicating. He was an alcoholic. So I thought that was interesting. I also recognized the love that he had for his son, which is something that came my way from my father. So it was interesting to look at that. And then I was fascinated by the journey of Jordan's character, central journey, the inability to express yourself. I found that in my gay friends from when I was very, very young in school, the ones that felt that they could talk to me, and then the absolutely accepted homophobia and homosexual bullying that took place in school environment, in just in life in general. Jordan's character sits firmly in the middle of that, and is also a part of it in hiding. He expresses the homophobia that's around him. He joins in to protect himself. Right.
And then his journey to burgeoning sexuality, as they would say, the idea of coming out to his father, I thought was beautifully, is very, very important. That he felt he could. The bravest thing he ever did, I think, more brave than anything that he would do in the ring. Even though, sure. I mean, there's your trophy right there. But then the relationship that he has with Wetu, and the cultural crossover, and also how sexuality is perceived from that side, from the Maori side of the barrier. Very, very interesting. The script moved around and examined the journey of this boy to find himself. I thought that it was fascinating, and so in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of the lockdown, got on a plane and went to New Zealand.
Okay, well, I was going to bring it up. I possibly, I do want to ask you about that particular, aspect of the production, but more. Well, so I kind of wanted to ask you about the your process of kind of figuring out this guy, because you see a lot of alcoholic characters and a lot of different choices how they're portrayed by actors. Obviously going back, walking around hiccuping with the bubbles popping above the head is, but you really, your portrayal isn't so much about, like falling over. There's a little bit, obviously, it's going to
There
be,
are moments.
but
There are
you
moments.
really have, you kind of play with this, like a sad or melancholy portrayal of it. I just wondering what went into, how you, or perhaps you worked with Welby Ings, who is the director,
Yeah.
in figuring out how you're going to portray this guy. What
I didn't. I felt. I mean, I've been around alcoholics all my life, and I've certainly sort of drunk too much during this experience of being an actor. That's for sure.
Mhm.
But being around alcoholics, and I thought it was important not to have him, as you say, the sort of bubbles popping, falling over cliche. I thought what was interesting is when you're with people where the alcohol is just their maintenance tool. It's so they're functioning, a functioning alcoholic in however that expresses itself. The ability to communicate, the ability to do that, but the only way that they can cope with their minute-to-minute existence is to self-medicate. So that puts their emotions on hold. It puts their crisis on hold, if you like, so that they can live in this particular moment that they've chosen, or they're struggling with. So I've been around people who are, wet brain, very, very physically beaten and damaged by that. I've been around people who are hiding and using that to keep up the pretense. I felt it was important that he wasn't caricatured, so I cherry-picked from various people that I know and have experienced, and then placed that just gently over the character. For him, it wasn't about his alcoholism. For those around him, it is, because they're looking at him, or they're trying not to. They're looking away from him. So that gave him the ability to function up to a point, and I thought that was necessary so we could tell the story. Yeah. Don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And it does. And I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking, like, for Jim, your son in the movie, he just wants his dad to be present, and
Yes.
when you're inebriated, when you are in that space that you're describing, you can't really be fully present.
No.
So, and then he feels this loss of his father, in those moments, and he really obviously is at a particular moment where he needs his father in a lot of ways, that the father's not able to do.
It's interesting because the central moment for them, his father is very present.
Mm-hmm.
When they finally have that conversation. It's very, very interesting, I think, how that goes down, and I think surprising and wonderful from his son's point of view. But yeah, I had to make a choice, and we had to be careful so that the conversations could happen, or potentially could and couldn't. It's a fine line.
So New Zealand, it's a bit of a trip, right?
Yes. We were in very severe lockdown because my in-laws were very fragile and very susceptible, and we had to be very, very careful. So we lived in a bubble completely on our end. And then I got on a plane. This is pre-vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
during lockdown, went to New Zealand, where you were taken from the airplane to various hotels, and you had to isolate in a room for 12 days. My one was run by the Air Force, the Air Force over there. But after that, and we've been fully masked up, and we were spraying down stuff. We were doing all of that stuff, that we did. And then after, when you're tested every day and twice a day or whatever, and they bring you food and blah, and then they open the door and you can walk out. And it was really nerve-wracking. I went straight to a Maori ceremony, a dinner in a restaurant with Maori ceremony blessing the film, and all of that kind of stuff was taking place. I had to go take a break and go outside for a while, because I hadn't been for the best part of a year, I suppose. I had not been in the presence of people in any way, and so except my family, and so it was quite remarkable. And then I could go out and I could walk around beautiful countryside, and they put me in a little Airbnb, and then went to work. And we had the beginnings of COVID protocol, where they were just trying to figure it out on set. So the crew was all masked up and stuff in general. But yeah, it was quite something. But they had the best rate, didn't they? I think in New Zealand. Yeah. I think there was one person that got it.
I think I was wondering about that, because I think that later changed. But I think in those for a good period of time early in the pandemic, New Zealand was like the what's the expression? I guess
it was this is how to do it.
Right. Yeah. that works. Yeah. Pretty much.
Do it just like this, and we'll be okay, kind of thing. And I did get to meet Jacinda out there, which was a lot of fun as well. So
what's that again?
I did get to meet Jacinda while I was out there as well, and she got a lot of flack because of her stance on it, but it saved a lot of lives, that's for sure. A lot of lives. Yeah.
Well, anyway, the name of the film again is called Punch. It's written and directed by Welby Ings plural.
Yeah.
I believe this is maybe his first feature.
I think it's the first feature. Yeah, he teaches. He's a professor. He lives in the woods. He's a quite extraordinary guy.
Yeah.
And it was the two young actors. It was the first time they'd ever been in front of a camera. They had no idea what to expect. So it was extraordinary watching them. Yeah.
And they actually had a really nice chemistry. It's a real sensitive portrayal. I remember, I probably have to wind down soon, but I was thinking about this. I wasn't sure if I should bring it up, because it may sound like I'm almost what's what am I trying to say? Challenging, I guess, the premise a little bit, but I find now it's really the younger people, right? I mean, the younger generation of kids coming up now who really don't care so much about whether or not somebody's gay or trans.
I'm not sure about that. I think that there is more openness. But there is also still, I mean, if you look at the divisions across America, for example, there is still, that far right kind of aspect to culture that you never know if you're going to run up against. That intolerance is still very, very present.
I will not argue with that. Absolutely, there's a lot of intolerance, and I think that even if it's a minority of people, they are very loud about it, and unfortunately, are very power hungry and motivated. But I just find like now, I've been living 2 minutes left. I'm living up in the Hudson Valley these days, and in New York, and there's some, the small town, very big mix of politics, people up here, and what I'm finding though is that the kids in the high schools, they don't have a problem with it. But
that's good. That's so good to hear.
You know what I mean? It's like it's much more accepted nowadays, and I just didn't know. But of course, I don't really even know, like in a small in Auckland or some small spot in New Zealand, what that could be like. But
yeah, I mean, I found it fascinating in the script that, and the fact that Welby, I think, chose to talk about that means that quite possibly things aren't as open as you are experiencing. I think there is more conversation. Certainly is a damn time more conversation than when I was growing up.
Yeah, well, you and me both.
Oof, yeah, it was pretty terrifying then. Yeah,
I bet. Yeah, no, not much different in this on the mean streets of Forest Hills where I grew up. But
yeah, there you go.
Growing up in Queens in the 70s, but with that again, Dark Star, it's in select theaters on demand and on digital as of March 10th here in the States. And again, without gushing or anything, I just want to say, really appreciate your career and your choices over the years. And it's just such a pleasure. And I'm waiting with bated breath to find out if Stephen Frears is coming on with The Lost King, his new film. Which I gotta get him on anyway.
If you do, say hi from me.
Okay, that'll do. And I hope not that we don't have to wait 6 or 7 more years again to do one of these. But
no. Well, keep them coming. Keep them coming. All right,
man. Thank you very much.
Cheers, pal. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.